Welcome, Will. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I absolutely love having you on the show. The way we interacted in the last episode kind of sets our future in podcasting and how you gave us a good framework to follow, whether it's presentations or content creation. I think there's a lot of valuable lessons that not only my audience, but like I learned from our last time talking. So in this episode, I would love for us to just chat about how conversations take place in the real world and the virtual world. And this could be for aspiring content creators or just people who want to influence other people, and just kind of have very deep conversations, very mindful conversations in their lives. And we were just chatting before our podcast started how relationships are so critical for humans because you age better and your chances of diseases are actually lower if you have healthy relationships. But carrying out healthy relationships eventually requires conversations, better conversations, good conversations. So what is the first step that we could take when we see a stranger? When we talk about, right, when we started talking on our podcast last time, we were essentially strangers. And so how do we actually interact with strangers and make them friends or call them friends? Will?
That's a great question. It reminds me, I was sitting in a barber shop like a couple days after I started my business about 6 years ago, maybe, 6.5 years ago. And I had started this business. I had been, for those who didn't see our last conversation, I was an actor my whole life since I was 7. And then I kind of had a crisis of identity after theater school. I hated my experience there. So I quit acting and I became first a teacher and then an entrepreneur. And I used my acting skills and my teaching experience to coach entrepreneurs and other people on how to be better public speakers and communicators. So at that time, I had just started the business. I didn't really have any resources that were sort of specific to public speaking. I was trying to just kind of making shit up that I did in my classes or stuff that I knew from audition coaching to help people be better speakers, but I didn't have a lot of supplementary material. And I saw a book in the barbershop called The Like Switch, and it was written by an ex-FBI, not interrogator, but I think part of his job was interrogation, but his job was to find spies from other countries and befriend them and then get them to defect to the United States. And he learned a couple tricks and tips on how to make these enemies of his country into friends so that they would defect and become United States spies. This was such an interesting book, and it seemed pretty manipulative, but there's some really, really interesting things in there. So I want to highlight a couple things. Is these two people, first of all, seemingly could not be more different. They're from enemy countries, so usually that means that the two countries' cultures are quite different or their philosophies are different. They're also already spies, so they both are very suspicious of people naturally. So to overcome that huge gap, he still did some very simple things. The first one was, how often does this person see you? And that's a huge one, especially for our talk later about virtual relationships, how to build a relationship to an audience online. The number of times people see you increases their familiarity, increases their trust, and they will simply be more likely to like you. Of course, there's some people we see all the time on our YouTube feeds, or we see them at a party all the time. We go, I fucking hate that guy. But that's a personality thing. There's not much you can do about that. But frequency builds familiarity. So that's a really important one. Then the other important one is variety of location. If I see you only at the gym and we're strangers, maybe you're just that guy at the gym. And then maybe, after a few sessions, I start to nod at you and I go, hey, are you using this machine and whatever. But that's the only context for our relationship. We're not going to say much more other than workout stuff. But if I see you at the gym 5 times and then all of a sudden I see you at my favorite restaurant, you kind of go, oh, hey, what's up? Hey, man, me from the gym. And then that's kind of funny, but maybe that's as far as it goes. And then I see you at our local convenience store. I go, man, I'm running into you. Do you live around here? That starts to build a relationship as well. So not just frequency, but the variety of location or the variety of the context. That also breeds the familiarity. Now with you and I, when we first met, it was just Instagram that we had communicated through, but then you had sent me an email, and then we were speaking sort of virtually face to face. So that's already 3 different contexts.
Yeah.
I had also gone through your Instagram and looked at your videos after you invited me to be on the pod. So I heard your voice, I saw your face, I saw you smile, I saw you frown. So there was a whole other bit of context there for me to humanize you and to make me feel like I knew you a little bit. And so the face and the voice are so important. And so the more you can humanize yourself really in the other person's eyes, that's the main thing to think about. Humanizing yourself for the other person and then humanizing them for you. The more we see other people as human, the more likely we are to feel connected to them. That's why small talk things can be so powerful. If you say to somebody, "How was your weekend?" and they go, "Good." Well, that's a lost opportunity for connection. But if somebody says, "Great, I went to the park with my wife and my daughter and our dog, and we had a great picnic." All of a sudden, I'm married, I've got a daughter, I've got a dog, some obvious questions. Like, what would you ask me once I told you that if we were just getting to know each other?
What would I ask you once?
Yeah, to
Oh yeah,
follow up.
I would say, what was the park? Where was it? What did your daughter do? Did she have
Yeah,
fun?
yeah, exactly.
She's very young, so
Yeah, how
yeah,
old is she? What kind of
yeah,
dog do you have?
uh-huh,
Yeah, exactly. All these questions are great. But if I just say good, then you have nothing to work off, right?
yeah,
So I actually coach people on that a lot, is to say,
okay,
if somebody asks you, "How was your weekend?" Stop saying fine, thanks, how was yours? That's a missed opportunity to humanize yourself for the people you're speaking with. And the more information you provide them with, obviously you don't want to tell them about your whole life story every time you speak.
yeah.
But the more tidbits of your life that you're willing to share, the more you will humanize yourself for another person or an audience. So one thing I like to do when I'm meeting new people is just share some details of my life. I'm married, I have a daughter, I have a dog, I'm a public speaking coach. That's what I do for a living. I really love making music and I perform on stage. I love Harry Potter. I'm a huge Harry Potter nerd. Like, whatever it is, I just find a way to work it into the conversation, and then it allows them to open up as well. And then they tell me what they're a nerd about, or they tell me what they do for a living. They tell me their, you know, relationship status, and then we're off. And then you can build such a deep connection from there.
It looks like, as someone having a conversation with like a stranger, like we are giving out little details of our lives. But sometimes it may be like really risky to give out details like that. And growing up, when I was in high school, like I would walk past someone in the hallway and I wouldn't really understand this, right? Just because of the insecurities I may had. Sometimes when you're socially anxious, I'm sure you might come across in your coaching people who are socially anxious. Their communication barrier is probably really high. And so going back to the story as I was telling when I was in high school, I would like really not respond well to, like you said, how's your day going, or how are you? I would just say like, I'm good. Like I wouldn't just spit out information. And even now, like I'm getting better, but when you said this, it kind of like forces me to reflect on how I communicate with people right now, because I haven't had really many friends in my life, and that is because of like how I overcame my social anxiety. But now that I'm doing podcasting and stuff, and I will go to school, I'll have people who have same interests as me. I will be more willing to kind of initiate those conversations, like little conversations, like how are you, or what are you up to today, or all that stuff. So I think that's a great advice, like giving out different or even pieces of information than just holding it up, even though it might be risky sometimes.
I want to address that because that's a really important point. And a lot of your listeners may be kind of in their teens still, right? Or at
Yeah.
least, closely connected to the high school age or the early university age. And that is a different story. If you think about, which I always like to do, how human beings evolved, the reason that communication is so important to humans in the first place is because we evolved to be social animals. We live in tribes, and therefore the support, the safety, the embrace of the tribe is so important to us. Otherwise, evolutionarily speaking, we wouldn't survive without that.
Yeah.
And when you're a teenager, social currency is absolutely everything. Whether people like you or not, whether you're included in the group, is everything. And it's such a formative time in your life that if you're considered weak, if you're considered uncool, if you're considered untrustworthy, whatever, any little label put on you can get you completely outcast, and that can fuck you up for a lot of years. It happened to me too. I got bullied when I was younger, or I felt excluded. By the time I hit high school, I felt a bit more able to navigate social relationships, though I still had incredible insecurities, as I think all teenagers do. But it actually is risky when you're a teenager, because appearing to be cool and confident is so important to teenagers, because they're all scared and terrified that someone will find out that they're not. As you reach adulthood, and as you say, enter into worlds where people have similar interests, and there's a sort of sense of, now that I'm older, I realize nobody has it figured out, and I can start to admit that I don't. It becomes much more powerful and important to share parts of your life and to be vulnerable, because that gives other people who are sufficiently mature enough, and usually I find most adults are when I open up, to share their own experiences. And you just shared something very vulnerable with me, that you have social anxiety. That's not an easy thing to admit to. I think our culture is getting better at opening up about that sort of thing, but it might be tempting for you as a podcaster,
Yeah.
as a YouTuber, to say, I feel confident, I feel I'm cool. We want to project a good life and a cool personality and a confidence to the world so that people will follow us, they'll like us, whatever. When in fact, one of the best things you can do is admit that that's not how you feel.
Yeah.
And that you are not Mr. Confident, and you're not Mr. Have It All Together. I think that makes for better, maybe fewer followers, fewer connections, but better connections, if you are vulnerable and admit to those things. And certainly it can be risky in high school. In high school, everybody's just trying to survive, right? You're trying to survive without getting your ass kicked, without going to jail, without getting pregnant. Like it's a fucked up time. I mean, at least it was when I was in high school. So you're just trying to get through. And so you'll do whatever. You'll lie, you'll pretend to be something, you'll like make friends with people you don't even like, you'll do drugs, you'll drink, or you'll do whatever to try to get accepted. And that makes sense in that environment. But once you're out, hopefully you can realize that once you're in it, if anyone's in high school listening to it right now, you don't have to do these things to get accepted. And being accepted is not the most important thing in the world. Staying out of jail is much more important than being accepted. But, especially once you're older, you realize that people are safer.
Yeah.
And you can admit to things and open up. And it not only is it less risky, but it's better than keeping all your cards close to your chest. You'll create relationships that'll help you make money, that'll help you meet a partner, that will help you develop really good friendships, people you can count on, and you'll be there for them, they'll be there for you. I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. Something about being or hating something about yourself in your childhood becomes your superpower in your adulthood. I heard that in Chris Williamson's podcast. I don't know if you know Chris Williamson.
Yeah.
I love his podcast, Modern Wisdom, where it was a conversation between David Goggins and Chris, and they were saying like it just brought me back to my childhood, that I always wanted to hide something about myself that wasn't really accepted, right? So I'll give you this funny example, right? So like Indian accents, right? I'm Indian, so like Indian accents are really, they are funny. Like I could like I could feel it. They're funny in the Western world. we have shows even portraying that they are funny. It is what it is. So when I was trying to Americanize my accent, and it wasn't like a conscious thing, but early on when I was trying to be more American, I would somehow hide the fact that like not deliberately, but like I would like hold back myself, my true self. And I feel like hiding that part of me was a joke, because like now I really accept that. I also
Mm.
accept the fact that like even though I might have a little bit of accent, it just sets me apart from someone else. And on top of that, I speak different languages, which I wasn't really like accepting about in my childhood, because like, oh, you speak two extra languages. Um, maybe it's I don't know, like speaking good English in my head in my childhood was really cool to me, which would really make others accept like me as a person. That's how I thought. But when I went into the real world, and like when I started working in hospitals and stuff, and I started to use my own language to not play a part in saving someone's life, that's when I realized that I have to accept myself, because if I don't accept myself and my ethnicity and my culture, I'm not going to be the best version of myself. So have you in your life realized that I have to accept myself and how I speak? And I was just curious, like, what is your personality while you talk to other people when you're
Mm.
having a conversation? I would love to learn that from you.
Yeah. This is a big one for me because I have so many insecurities that I've tried to shape and mold and fix over the years growing up. For me, the cultural insecurity I have is being Jewish. And my stereotype is that Jews have nasally voices and they sound annoying and they sound nerdy, and people think maybe they're funny, but they're kind of like annoying. That's the Woody Allen like trope growing up. So I know I have a slightly nasal voice, so I really tried to fix that. I grew up raised by my mom mostly, and I had an older sister, so I have a lot of effeminate traits and mannerisms. And growing up in a homophobic time, that was scary, because I'm like, maybe people will think I'm gay and that's not cool, and so I've got to like seem tough and I've got to seem like manly and whatever. So I would try to hide any kind of those aspects of my personality. And then as I was growing up, then I kind of would overcompensate for some things, and then I'd need to like, so then I started acting really macho, and I realized, well, I actually really do like working out, and I actually really do like some like manly, activities. But then I've got to hide that, because some people think that's stupid, and only
Yeah.
stupid people do those sorts of things. So it's a constant process of unlearning and stopping listening to the voice in your head that's telling you this is wrong. That being said, self-awareness is a really good thing to develop in yourself. So it's not that you never listen to how you come across or think about it, but it's this beautiful word that you used, acceptance. Because acceptance doesn't mean you don't have to change anything or you can't work on yourself. But it means on a deep level, you do not judge yourself for the way you are. And you contextualize it and understand, I am this way because of who my parents were, because of where I was born, because of who my friends were, who my siblings were, some traumas that happened to me in childhood, some traumas that happened to me throughout my whole life, not just childhood. All this shit goes into how you communicate. And the acceptance part means if you hate it in a dark way, then you are cutting off part of yourself. But if you accept it, then that frees you to be more curious and open, going, okay, I know I have a tendency to show off because I grew up and I didn't think I was good enough. So I would take up a lot of space in the room. I would talk a lot. I would make jokes all the time, and I would try to be Mr. Funny in the middle of the room. I forgive myself for that. It's okay. There was a lot of reasons why I did that. And if there are reasons that my friend were to tell me about, I would say, yeah, you're fine. Don't worry about that. But I still want to make more space for people to talk. So I work on it, but I work on it from a place of acceptance rather than a place of embarrassment, shame, and judgment.
So I think we have, so going, two things, I think. I think the first thing is, when you said about how you were growing up with females, I had the exact same experience. And
Mm,
yes, you would, what I've seen is over the years, I've also tried to overcompensate or show off just because maybe I want to perceive, I want to be perceived that I'm masculine rather than
yeah.
more feminine, because I have been a lot of females in terms of like family wise. Um, because yeah, I mean, that's the overcompensation part, and I'm trying to work on it. It's like a journey where you kind of like remind yourself that okay, this is who I am, and I don't care about masculinity and femininity. It's all about like just accepting who you are and your, yes, I mean, I like doing things that are masculine. Like I like working out. I like when me and my girlfriend go on dates, like I like paying for
Hmm.
stuff. Like I always want to overpay for things. And it's just that I want to do those things. And that could be a fine line between overcompensating or just trying to be someone who you want to be, like a masculine
Mm,
man.
right. Yeah, that's important. And I think another thing is just trying to understand why you do what you do. This is why psychology and therapy is so important. It's like, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing is like, am I doing this because it brings me joy? It feels right. It feels good. It's something on a deep level that's satisfying, or does it bring me joy because, or am I doing it because I want somebody else's approval? And
Mm,
so to me, that's the test. If you're paying for your girlfriend because you want her to feel uh, in awe of you, or you want her to be impressed by you, or you want her to respect you more, that maybe isn't the best reason to be doing it.
exactly.
But if you're doing it because it truly makes you feel good, and because
Right.
you go, this is a way I can contribute to our relationship, this is something I can do. I worked hard for this money and now I'm using it on someone I love, and that feels really great, and it feels like a good use of my money and my hard work, and that's awesome. That's a great reason to pay for a meal. And so like I think that's really the key thing that people have to ask themselves is like, are you just acting out a script that someone else has written for you, or are you writing your own script?
Yeah, definitely. Since we're on this like girls part,
Mhm. Yeah.
we can all start talking about conversations of approaching
Yeah.
females or dating wise, right? I know Tinder exists. I know that you can strike up a conversation on Tinder. But I want to say like I think this is a easier entry for starting our part for like having conversations with strangers, because
Hmm.
if you don't have any motivation, um, like I feel like it's an easier motivation to talk to females than talking to any stranger as a man if you're single.
You feel that talking to women is the best motivating factor in terms of talking to strangers? Is that what you mean?
Only if you're single. Like let's say if I was single, right? I would, if I wanted to improve my skills to like just this my conversation skills, I would be more inclined to talk to more females than males. And I think
Gotcha. Yeah.
it's,
There's an intrinsic
yes,
motivation there, which is that like the better I am at talking to women, the more likely I have of finding a partner who I think is awesome, and, or finding a partner at all,
yeah,
versus if I'm out there talking to a lot of guys, yeah, maybe I'll make some friends, or some business connections. But what most of us often really want when we're young and single is to find a partner, or at least to find multiple partners over a lot of time, whether you're somebody maybe who's like a perpetual bachelor, and that's okay too, if that's how you want to live your life, right? That really is okay.
yeah,
What I think you're saying, and what I would agree with, is that there is a clear motivation for men to get better at the way they talk to women, straight men,
Right.
obviously,
Right.
but the way they talk
Exactly.
to women.
Yes.
And so then the question is, how do you do that?
Hmm.
My disclaimer is I always sucked at it when I was single. I was really bad. You mentioned social anxiety. I had brutal social anxiety where this was concerned. I just thought that, what the fuck would a woman want with me? Like, what would she want? Of all the guys who could go up and talk to her, why would she want me to be it? And that's just like a deep, deep lack of self-confidence. I didn't think I had anything to offer. So what I knew when I was approaching a woman is that you'll be doing me a favor if you talk to me. If you talk to me, if we kiss, if we go home together, you're doing me a big favor, and I'll, be grateful. And of course, that's like the worst way to feel about yourself, is that somebody else is doing you a big favor by connecting with you as a human being. So I honestly, this never flipped until I got into a serious relationship. Maybe a bit before it. Maybe I was starting to develop some self-confidence before I met my wife. But I really, for a long time, until I was like 25, I thought I was a loser. And so every woman I ever got with, I did so because I was playing a character.
Yeah.
And so that's the easy answer. If you want to approach women, find a persona. That persona should be confident. He should be, doesn't give a fuck what anyone thinks about him. He should be arrogant, and he should treat the world like it's beneath him. And then you'll, get some people who find that kind of interesting and exciting for a little bit. You'll get to hook up with them, and then maybe, then you can go from there. But the better way is the self-development road. Get interested in things. Truly interested. Again, is it because it's you or because other people? Get interested in things you really like, and then do those things and get good at them and get better at them, and then meet other people who are also into them. And then when you're talking to them, it won't just be about, can I fuck you? It'll be like, we like this same thing. And then if there's a connection there, great. And if not, like, whatever. I mean, it's there's nothing wrong with having one night stands or whatever, but you really want to meet people that you have similar interests with, because it just feels better to date people who you have a connection with. It doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't feel good to wake up in somebody's house and be like, oh, I have nothing in common with this person. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
That ultimately doesn't feel that great. So I thought it would when I was younger. I thought this will be great. If I can just like have a bunch of different women, I'll feel better about myself. And then as I started to develop the persona who was able to do that, it never felt satisfying because it wasn't real to me. I wasn't being myself, and that ultimately doesn't feel good. So I would say the best thing you can do to learn how to talk to women is to really get confident in who you are by getting interested and good at things, and then going to places where those things happen. If you like music, get really good at your instrument, but then get out there. Don't just spend all your time practicing. Get out there and talk to other musicians and go to shows and put on your own shows. And it's amazing how that will change. You can't just be interested in things. You have to also be interested in people. And then the third part to that, I would say, which is this is just good human theory, let alone dating theory. Ask real curious questions about the other person.
Yeah.
Try to really find what you would find interesting about this person. What do you want to know about them? And really, that's so exciting, at least for me, when I would have conversations with girls at bars like that, when we actually got to know each other. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, rather than just like, what are you doing here? Oh, I come here with my friends, like a fucking stupid conversation, but you actually get to know somebody that feels really exciting and it feels good. So just think, like, what would you want to learn about this person if you weren't attracted to them? If you truly wanted to get to know them, what would you ask them? And try that.
That's a solid advice.
And then get really good at rejection, because that's just going to happen. No matter how good looking you are, no matter how confident you are, you will face lots of rejection in all aspects of your life. People will say no to you. People will make you feel horrible for even trying to talk to them. And just get really good at knowing It's not me. It's just there's a lack of compatibility there. It's not a rejection of who I am as a person. It's a rejection of this particular situation. And that's fine.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you can verify this idea. It's not about. I have lived my life too. Like I'm still young. I'm just 23. But at one point, yes, I wanted to talk to different girls all the time. Like it's just that
Sure.
I feel like
Yeah.
not all men. I cannot feel like I cannot say this about all men, but I'm just saying like I'm kind of learning from you here where we have this tendency to like have this narcissistic phase that talking to different women will ultimately make us feel more accomplished.
Yeah.
And what truly makes us accomplished is picking something and getting good at it and actually achieving something, whatever it is, it's like academic success or money or like hustling at something. And that's what
Yeah.
really makes
Hustling
us
is something.
feel it's about how you feel respected for yourself.
Yeah.
Like self-respect comes from like actually doing what you want to do, like picking a thing and then getting good at it. Like you said, like the music thing, where you don't just play a like you don't you have to play that instrument and then go out and do things related to it where you can potentially find your partner. Like it's the same thing. Like if you're working out, like you have to get good at getting healthy, and then you can maybe go to different events where you can find people. And even if you're meeting through dating apps, like it's just that asking the right questions. And so how are we going to do that in a non-creepy way? How can we think with our heads and not with our dicks
Yes. Right.
when we're
It's a
talking to women?
that is a $1 trillion question. If you can figure out how to teach men how to do that. I mean, I think, like this idea, it's becoming more popular, and I think it's a really good thing, which is that in order for men to if men want to attract more women, it's so much better for them and for the women they're trying to attract if they can just get really emotionally and physically healthy and feel good about themselves and be good people and have developed themselves. And I think the emotional development maybe is a piece that gets left out of this sometimes. Not everybody can afford therapy.
Yeah.
But it's so important. And if you can't afford it, there are ways to do it without seeing a registered therapist. In Ontario here, there's ways to work with students who are way cheaper. Some of them will even see you for a couple sessions for free. If in different places, there's a lot of apps now that have been developed, like BetterHelp, I know does stuff, and ICBT, which is, I think, internet cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT was the therapy modality for me that really worked. And in terms of asking questions and self-development, CBT focuses on you challenging your own negative thoughts. So whether those thoughts are negative directed at other people, like, oh, all women suck because I can't get a date, or whether they're internally negative, which is I am a piece of shit because I can't get a date, or whatever, or because I can't get money for my startup, or because I can't get a job, whatever the message that you're telling yourself is. And CBT, which is the one I'm familiar with, teaches you how to challenge those ideas of everything sucks, all or nothing thinking, black or white thinking, fortune telling. There's all these cognitive distortions, mistakes your mind is making. You mentioned the term social anxiety. We have to think about what anxiety actually is. It is a fear response to something that may or may not be real. And anxiety developed because years ago, like millions of years ago, as conscious creatures, as mammals, we had to learn how in a split second when a lion came charging out of the grass, we had to learn how to shut down certain aspects of our body that were a waste of energy and put all of our resources into getting the fuck out of there. And so if you think about anxiety now, what does it do? It shuts off your ability to think clearly.
Right.
It makes your mouth dry. It makes you sweat. it does all these things that are like the worst for talking to another human being and for speaking, because it's for some reason you have something telling your body that you're in danger. So learning how to unpack anxiety, understanding what's going on with it, understanding why you do the things you do, what that's based on, how you can make different decisions. That's what therapy is. And a lot of men are really against the idea of going to therapy because they think it won't work for them. They think it's like geared towards women maybe, but I can't recommend therapy, especially for young men, enough. But you got to find the right person, and you've got to go to it because you truly want to learn about yourself better and feel better about yourself and others and the world. And once you make that decision, you can change so much about the patterns you're stuck in. You can change so much about doing things that you feel are hurting you, but you can't stop doing them, compulsions. So that's probably the baseline thing, is find something, get good at it, and find some touch point, some entry point into therapy as soon as you fucking can.
Yeah. The first thing I'm going to do after PA school is get a therapist, because I truly can't afford a therapist right now. Just
Yeah,
the circumstances,
sure.
like you said, how expensive it could be. But I feel like the therapy can definitely, like, I have tried it and then I had discontinued because of the finances and stuff. How I haven't shared this anywhere, but like I officially hit my low point in finances in 2023, just because how everything worked out with school
Sure.
and like with work. And so right after, I think I would be able to get therapy services from grad school. So I hope that works out. But yeah, moving on to different strangers now. Like, okay, now you don't really care about females. Like now you are a self-confidence man. Like you, like, let's say like you right now. And if you want to make new friends, what are we supposed to do? Like, we know that we're good enough, right? Let's say I have this belief, okay, I am, if I'm in PA school and if I am achieving something, and if you are a coach and if you have this conference or whatever it is, like if you have this meetup, a meeting, like you internally, you know that you are good enough, but there's still like lingering imposter syndrome there.
Sure.
In some meetings, because I'm in a very new environment. I moved down south from north in the United States, and I have this imposter syndrome lurking in my head. Like, am I good enough? Like, am I supposed to be here? I don't think this is gonna work out, but like,
Yeah.
eventually it will work out. Like, nothing's gonna go wrong. But how are we supposed to navigate that?
So we learn that lesson a million times. I learn it every time I have a new business client.
Yeah.
I tell myself the day before our first workshop together, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh fuck, this is going to be terrible. Even though every single other one has gone well, I my body and my mind go crazy thinking that this is going to be so bad. They're not going to like it. They're not going to engage with the work. They're not going to speak up. They're not going to volunteer to speak. You know, in my workshops, people stand up and they give me their spiel, whether it's a pitch or a presentation, and I coach them and I show them how to tweak it. And then my fear is always they're either not going to stand up, or I'm going to, ask someone to stand up and then they're going to resent me for it, or they're just going to think everything I'm saying is bullshit and they're not going to like it. Despite 6.5 years in business doing this thing and always getting great reviews and feedback, I still every single time convince myself somehow that this one's not going to go well. So at a certain point, you maybe have to just resign yourself to a life of constant imposter syndrome. That's fine. You get better at managing it. But then the other interesting thing you mentioned is like you move. So why do we feel imposter syndrome when we move? Is it because where you moved, it was a bunch of idiots and losers, and now you're in a place with cool people and you have to suddenly be different? Or are they the same people, but you just have less familiarity?
Yeah.
Right? So that's what it is. So again, learning why the anxiety is coming, understanding where it comes from. It's not true. Anxiety is a liar. Do you know Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club? Do you know him? Do you follow him online?
No.
Anyways, great, amazing sort of radio, television personality. Really, really funny guy. Really confident. But he wrote a book called Shook One: How My Anxiety Plays Tricks on Me. And that's such a perfect way of saying it. Your anxiety is playing a trick on you. What it's telling you is not real. It's telling you you're not good enough, but it's lying to you. It's telling you that what you're doing is scary, but that's not true. It's not scary to go up and talk to a stranger. In 99 out of 100 cases, they're not going to hurt you. They're not going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
In, again, most cases, maybe it will. But in general, it's not going to happen. Like the vast majority of the worst that can happen is they say, ew, get away from me. And then you're like, all right. And so knowing that your anxiety is telling you things that aren't true and learning how to counter that, that's what you got to do. Then once you get up to that person, once you conquer the anxiety and you get up to that person, again, it's about asking really curious questions and offering information about yourself first. Because a lot of people, they're probably nervous too, and we don't think about that. If I'm walking up to a stranger, they look on the outside cool and collected, and they're sitting on the bar or whatever, or they're sitting doing their homework, or they're with 4 other people. But internally, they have the same narrative running through their heads. I'm an imposter. I don't belong here. I'm not good enough. I can't believe these people are even sitting with me. I can't believe I have friends. If they really knew who I was, they wouldn't like me. All that stuff,
Yeah.
And so just know that. So when you go up to somebody and start talking to them, if you volunteer some of those things about yourself that we talked about earlier, your family, where you're from, the fact that you speak multiple languages, the fact that you used to have these insecurities, you don't have to like dive right into insecurities, but just a little bit, like little bits of vulnerability. You don't have to do it all at once, but slowly, you can start a conversation with somebody on your first day of school and be like, man, I never know how to make friends at these things, and give them a smile. And then all of a sudden they're like, dude, me neither. Right. And then you've shattered that like pretense that everybody's doing. And then all of a sudden it's so easy to talk to them because you've both admitted that you both don't know what you're doing. The worst thing that can happen is you say, dude, I never know how to make friends at these things. They go, loser, I know how to make friends. You go, okay, fuck you. And then you walk away. Right. That's what's the problem? There's nothing has happened that you can't recover from there. So you just really, you lead with honesty, vulnerability, and then just that's how you make connection with people. And I would also say too, like, humor. It's as simple as that. If you can, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to crack a joke, but just smiling, laughing, pointing out something funny. I mean, that's it. Just like making things not so big and dark and scary and serious. Just like find a way to use humor and find people, you don't have to like make a crazy politically incorrect joke as soon as you meet someone before you know who they are. But like, just point out something funny, admit something vulnerable, have a smile when you do it, and then people will smile themselves. Like, I'm not even really making jokes right now to you, right? But we're smiling and laughing because we're just talking about stuff that we don't often talk about, and that often can be a little bit funny, right? Not like a stand-up comedian, but like just interpersonally.
Well, that's awesome advice. I'll definitely make a joke about that.
Yeah.
On my first day of school, because why not? Like,
why not?
If I don't apply anything in my life from my podcast, then what's the deal? Yeah. But yes, that's totally true. It's that in asking interesting questions, I've always, for me, it's always, I get like interesting part, but the humor, I always thought of humor as like very cool. Like, in I always, when I think of friendships, I think of high school friendships or school friendships. Like, I have this narrative in my mind that, okay, every friendship should be like a template of, let's say it's a high school friendship. And sometimes I don't know if it's a right narrative or a wrong narrative, because every friendship could be a different friendship, right? Like some friendships are like just talking about our personal lives, where other friendships are like talking about, I don't know, like health, science, and like curiosity type stuff.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time understanding that right now. Like how are we going to define friendships? Because it's so easy when you're younger to make friends because you don't give a shit about anything. Now that we have all this voice in our heads, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Like, what am I wearing? Is my accent right? Or am I supposed to be here? It all stops us in some way to crack a joke, even if you're going to, or
Mm-hmm.
to say something that's really nice, overly nice. Like we always, at least I do, like I always question if this is overly nice, or sometimes is it overly feminine when I
Right.
talk to males,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's not.
Oh my God, are they going to think I'm hitting on them? Yeah, like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes,
Which is such a
exactly.
funny thing. And, as you get older, of course, you realize that, like, first of all, they're not thinking that. Second of all, even if they are, they'll understand very quickly that you're not. And then even if they don't, that's fine. They're not going to kick your ass, or you're not going to get into a fight. Like, the fear of that as a younger man really starts to go away. Especially, I mean, obviously it's easier when everybody's like married and stuff, because, like, there's not that like fear of, like, I have to, I need people to know that, I'm straight and I'm manly. That really does start to go away. And I think,
Yeah.
for young gay men, that's like really scary, especially for them, because they're just like, what if they find out I'm gay? That's, and then that could be hard too for them to make friendships. But I think for young straight men, it's like, okay, I'm questioning, do these guys think I'm too effeminate? Do these guys think I'm too, like I'm a loser, or do they think I'm being overly friendly? And what I have found in my life is that usually not. If you just come with honesty, if you approach people with honesty, all these things that you're worried they won't like about you go away. And even either they don't like who you are on a fundamental level, so you approach them with honesty and they just go, ugh, no. And you can't control for that. Sometimes people just don't mix with you and you don't mix with them. And there's nothing you can do about that. You can't
Yeah.
force that, And so if that's the case, you don't try to win over those people. You don't try to make friends with people who are like that with you. And you just go, I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to be interested and open with other people. And they will read my intentions. I think what's really important is that you take the focus off of yourself. Am I good enough? Am I cool enough? Am I smart enough? And put the focus on them. What's interesting about this person? What is cool about them? What don't I know that I would love to find out? And how can I get there? I think most people really enjoy those interactions where they feel like they're not performing anymore.
Yeah, what are some great small talks that a person could have?
I'll
Because I
give you
think
the
that's
number
more of
one.
actionable. Yep.
I'll give you the number one small talk, not in all situations, but in networking events or parties.
Yes.
What brings you here?
Hmm.
This question is so perfect, because it's better for networking events, I'd say, than a party, because parties is kind of like, well, why are you asking? Like, I'm here to have a good time. But especially for business networking events, what brings you here is an open-ended, curious question. And then from there, you can get all the information you need. And for a party, you can use it almost as a joke. What brings you here? And then it's like, oh, well, I'm friends with Travis and he invited me. You can kind of use it too a little bit better. But this one is more for business and for networking. What brings you here is such a good question. The other question is just, how are you? But asked honestly, like you give a shit about the answer. At theater school, I had a teacher tell me the only question we ask in the English language that we don't care about the answer to is, how are you? All other questions we should ask like we expect an answer. Because, we do that all the time. Hey, how are you? That's not a question. That's literally a phrase. That's just a thing to say. That's a greeting with no expectation of an answer. But when you go, how are you? My wife is really good at this. When she asks people how they are, they know she really cares. And she gets the most amazing answers from people when she asks them, just because of her tone of voice. She goes, how are you? And people go, well, I'm actually really tired. And she, oh, what's going on? And then they tell her about what's going on in their life. And then all of a sudden we're having this great discussion. I see her do this all the time. And I've learned a lot from her about this, is how to really ask, how are you, as a real question. So that can be a really good one. It can become tricky. Some, things, different people respond to different ones. I love the question, where are you from, personally? because I love talking about, and I lived abroad a lot. So people would ask me where I was from. I would say Canada. We'd start talking. But, that question can become tricky for a lot of people who, I don't know how you feel. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, but I definitely hear from a lot of people that they feel that the question, where are you from, for people who, like, let's say, are not white or not obviously from the place that they're in, can be a question of like exclusion, or a question of like, do you belong here, or where are you really from? So I don't know. How do you feel about that question in general?
See, as growing up, like I said, I used to hide a lot about myself because I didn't want other people to know that I'm not white. Obviously, it shows. It's not
Yeah.
rocket science to like understand people's race. Because I was so dumb when I was growing up with all the interactions I had with people. So back then, I would always say, I'm from Pennsylvania.
Mm,
Now I say, I'm from India. It's
yeah.
totally different when you start accepting yourself and when you start learning from people like yourself that it's okay to be more vulnerable and give people the answer that they want to hear if they look interested in you. It's
Yeah.
okay to say that, okay, I'm Indian. I'm from the west side of India. And then the natural question would be from a person is like, when's the last time you've been there? Or when's the last time you visited your own country? When did you move here? It opens up a lot of questions compared to me just saying, I'm from Pennsylvania. I just feel like it's more authentic for me to say, which is I've found, like every time a person in the last 2 years who asked me like where I'm from, I've always said like, well, I would just give them the whole narrative, and then they could choose to ask me what they want from that. So
I
I'm
love
glad you
that.
asked that question.
I love that. And I feel the same way about that question. Is when I came back from China, I was living in China, and I had spent 2 years answering that question every single day. And it's obviously it's not necessarily the same as being in North America, because there's different dynamics going on there. But basically, when I came back here, I started hearing people say, "Oh, you can't ask people where they're from anymore. That's rude, or that's racist, or that's not a good thing to do." And for me, it was such a shame, because I thought, but it's such a beautiful possibility for connection between two people. If the question is honest, and if it's not used to make them feel bad or make them feel excluded, if and you, as you said, you can usually tell when somebody's face is curious or interesting, or when they go, where are you from? Like, it's really obvious when somebody has a certain intention behind something. So I would just say that, like, I love that question. I'm glad you feel the same way. But I would just, if somebody's looking for advice, just know that some people can maybe not feel great about that question because it's been used in the past, or they think it might be being used to make them feel like they don't belong there. And then the other question, which is really great, is like, what are you doing this weekend, or what did you get up to last weekend? Because that is a super casual, super common question. But again, there's that opportunity for getting to know someone's life. What are you doing? Any plans for the weekend? What are you doing this weekend? And that's just like, oh, we didn't do this, we're doing that, or whatever. And sometimes people that can be dangerous, because they think you're trying to invite them to something, or that you want to get invited to their thing. But just like casual, any plans for the weekend, or do you getting up to anything this weekend? And then it's just an interesting, and if you are trying to make friends, maybe you will get invited to what they're doing. And that can be a great way to ask. So those are great small talk questions. Another great small talk question is, do you believe in God? Totally joking. That's like a terrible small talk question.
Wonderful question.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm joking. Do not do that. Yeah, keep it away from politics, sex, and religion. Those are very good rules. People just can't navigate that with strangers. They don't know how to do it. And I personally love it. I love when people come up to me and ask me deep shit right away, but most people don't.
Yeah.
And so just respect that. And I have a friend, his name is Jan Keck. And if you are watching this and you use LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube, follow Jan, because his whole company is called Ask Deep Questions. I interviewed him for my podcast, and he talks about small talk is like the kindling for starting a fire, and the deep questions are like the big logs that burn for a long time. And if you don't have the kindling first, the fire will never start. So you have to build the trust and build the fire with the small talk and the smaller sticks. And then when that's going, then you can put a big log on the fire. And I really like that analogy for thinking about the importance of small talk. Getting really good at small talk and keeping it super casual and waiting until you build trust with a person is another great thing.
What about first impressions? And I was actually I'm currently reading this book, and that title it's a famous book. Everyone has probably read it. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I just forgot that
Yeah.
title. So like I was just reading it and like how to build the first impression on people. And this thing I never do for some reason. I never do. Maybe I'm wrong, but like it's the book said like you should always smile if you want to build a great first impression. And this is something that I don't know if I don't do, or I think I don't do, or maybe I do, and which I don't know about.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, again, let's think about the evolutionary thing behind that. Smiling, evolutionary speaking, is showing somebody, I mean you no harm.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what you're saying. I mean you no harm. Now, the smile can be fake. The smile can be aggressive. It's not that a smile is okay. But finding a way to just feel warm and happy in a situation. And that's the thing, is sometimes putting a smile on your face when you're not feeling like smiling, maybe that's not the right thing to do. You do want it to come from an honest place. You want your smile to read honestly. So I actually have to watch that a lot, because my tendency is to just be Mr. Smiley and make everybody like me. But sometimes I want to be a bit more honest than that and just go, okay, I'm going to save it for when I really, when I mean it, and not just smile automatically. So I would say just you should smile as much as you can, I think, in general, because it relaxes you generally, and it relaxes other people listening to you. So developing the ability to know when you could be smiling, and just developing the willingness to smile, developing the muscle of like finding little bits of humor and warmth and in life. Like that's what I've been told a lot when I speak in public. People go, "Oh, you're such a warm speaker because you smile all the time." And it's just because I find life kind of fun and funny. It's also horrible and fucking awful and scary and all these sorts of things. But it's also, there's so much funny moments. There's so many interesting, weird, absurd little reactions between people. And so when you talk about them and when you talk to other people, if you can just find the humor in those moments and find your smile. I would say it's not put on a smile, it's find your smile.
Yeah.
If you can find your smile, what makes you smile, and then let that bubble up to the surface, then
Definitely.
you can make people feel so much better.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about first impressions is don't worry so much about them.
Okay.
I don't know where this obsession with first impressions comes from, because apparently the science does not support that first impressions are that important. And anecdotally, in my own life, how many people did you know that you didn't like at first, and then you came and you really liked them later on? Happens all the fucking time. But we still say how important, you never get a second chance at a first impression. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter, unless it's the only time you're going to meet someone. If you're going to see them again and again, don't worry about the first impression. Worry about every time but like be mindful and curious and open and warm with them every time you talk, and you'll get there if you have compatibility. And if not, again, don't worry about it.
Awesome. Great advice. From being interesting person to having small talks, and how to talk to females and the variety of locations you can find someone, like expecting people in different location increases our tendency to speak to someone. And again, first impressions don't really matter. We covered a lot. For the last few minutes, it would be amazing that I could ask you, how do you interact with strangers in the virtual world? Specifically, like when you have negative interactions, how do you deal with them? And plus, also, we can go into how positive interactions. And then the whole goal is how do you interact with the audience you currently have, and how do you interact with them? But that would be my main question here. And then you can maybe get into like negative criticisms and positive criticisms.
Sure. So the virtual world is still relatively new, especially for human history, but even in recent human history. And we're still figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I think that's really important to realize is you can actually build a relationship with someone online, because I don't think we necessarily thought we could for a long time. And now it's very clear that you can. I've met people in person this year that I knew through COVID, and we gave each other huge, massive hugs, and we were so excited to see each other just because we had talked on Zoom and through email and on LinkedIn. And it is truly possible to build a real human connection with someone without ever being in a room with them, or at least for a while without ever being in a room with them. So first of all, let's think about that. Second of all, remember that still in person is king, because that's the real world, is what we're evolved for. We're not evolved to live in a virtual world. So you can make relationships, and don't ignore that. But remember, ultimately, human beings need touch and physical contact and looking each other in the eye. And you can't substitute that. Let's not all just jump into the fucking metaverse and get sex robots and play virtual sports. Like, let's just try to keep a hold of the real world here.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm talking to the tech community especially, because that's my world. And like, all these tech people are just jumping into AI and the metaverse. And like, you know, let's just relax. Online is great, but just fucking let's put some brakes on this train.
Yeah.
Now, I've made the decision in my life that all of the negativity of social media comes, it's, at least at this point in my life, I'm willing to accept that because of the benefits of it for me as a business person. I know that I can find clients, I can find partners and collaborators, I can make opportunities for myself by posting specifically on LinkedIn, and now I'm going to do YouTube, I think, a lot more seriously this year, as we talked about. So for me, I go, okay, what is it that I need to share, or I can share, or I should share, in order to make people see me online, think, hey, this guy looks interesting, check out a bit more about me, and then reach out to me to say, hey, how can I work with you? So that process, most people will be very calculated about that process. And that is smart. It's smart to be calculated and to be intentional about the way you build your business. For me, I have a hard time with that, because some of that intentionality means only saying certain things that fit your brand voice. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to cut off certain parts of my personality, at least not yet. I haven't figured out how to do that. I'd rather maybe overshare, or maybe share things that don't seem connected and maybe get a few fewer followers or a few less clients, than try to just make myself this online avatar who has no personality, or who only has a one-dimensional personality. But what I've come up with is, okay, what I help people with is public speaking and communication. Most of my clients are entrepreneurs or business people, so I'm going to make public speaking content for entrepreneurs and business people. So that's what I try to do. Within that, I try to practice what I preach, because when I tell people, my clients, hey, if you want to give a really great presentation, share a picture of yourself as a younger person, or tell a story about your family, or tell a story about your past. And for a while, I wasn't sharing those stories on LinkedIn. And then I realized, like, I'm a hypocrite if I don't do this. I have to practice what I preach. Otherwise, I'm making them take all the risk, and I'm not playing the same game. So this is a really fucked up thing, but my best performing post on LinkedIn ever was a post about the death of my brother. And that feels really awful in a lot of ways, because I go, okay, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And yet it's like this thing that I'm doing, LinkedIn, it's the best performing post on it. And sharing about it was the thing that, if I follow the LinkedIn strategy, I should be doubling down on that type of content. Does that mean I have to start sharing about the worst thing that happened to me every week? I don't think so. But what that did tell me is that people recognized, I think, how tough that was for me. I talked about it a bit in the post, how tough it was for me to share. The fact that I almost never do talk about it on social media with potential clients and stuff. But I know that when I do talk about it in my workshops and when I do connect with people over it, their hearts open up and they share with me. And we have some really beautiful human interactions when I talk about the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I'm not going to make that my LinkedIn strategy. I know some people out there will, grief for them is so important. So that's what they build their personal brand around. And I'm not judging that. That's fine. That's for them. And I know people who do that and they're honest. They're not just trying to monetize it. It's real and it's pure, and they're trying to connect with other people who have grief. But for me, I want to educate people first and foremost. So I share how I educate my clients. That's what I've been trying to do here with you today, while also showing who I am and trying to be real and honest. And my thesis is, and I only have like 3,500 followers on LinkedIn so far. That's not a ton, but it's grown since I started deciding to be more open and more of a educator / storyteller, let's say, on LinkedIn. And what I know from people messaging me and commenting is that sort of strategy has made people feel maybe more confidence to share their own story, or maybe more confidence to talk about things that they were scared to talk about, or just feel good that somebody else is going through something difficult that they've been through. So that's my way of building a relationship with an audience, is education, but also sharing personal stories and trying to be real and vulnerable about my struggles. But there's got to be a learning. For me, there's got to be a learning there. I can't just share it and then be like, so I'm sad, now you be sad. Like, it has to have some, some point to it. There's got to be a takeaway or a lesson. Are you familiar with the term parasocial relationship?
Parasocial. So you have to learn medical terminology for school, and para, the prefix, right? Prefix is something that I learned 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
I can't remember it. Parasocial.
So what does para mean? Does para mean over? I think it means over, right? Because if you think paranormal, above normal, paratrooper, a troop's above the... This is my etymology brain going. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
In any case, and I think, para maybe means over. But in any case, a parasocial relationship is a relationship that one person has with someone else, but that other person doesn't have with the original person. So celebrities, their fans have a parasocial relationship with that celebrity. They think about them, they follow their life, they want to know more about them, they feel like they know them because they see them in so many different contexts. And content creators have the same thing with their audience. The difference is usually, especially for a content creator of the sort that I'm trying to be, which is like active on LinkedIn, actively in the DMs, offering one-on-one coaching and group coaching as a way that people can work with me off the backs of some of my content. So it's a bit more than a parasocial relationship, because there is a bit more of a chance that I could maybe talk to them and get to know them. But I've been thinking about this word a lot because I have so many parasocial relationships with the podcasters I listen to, with the YouTubers I watch, with the movie stars I like. And you do feel like you know these people, because that's human. If you see somebody all the time, you're going to think you know them. That's how the brain works. You think, well, I see them all the time, so they must be in my tribe, right?
Yeah.
So what I try to do is take that seriously and go, okay, if I grow online, I'm going to have many parasocial relationships with people I've never met. And that's scary. Because who are these fucking people? I don't know. What do they want, right? Like, you don't know. It's unknown and it's uncertain. So what I try to do is go, okay, I'm just going to be as real as I can while still trying to be valuable. But I'm just going to try to be myself and try to be not perfect, not project something that I can't live up to, and really just try to show who I am. And that way, at least, maybe I might not get as many followers as other people, but I'll know that the relationships I do build will be based on something I can live up to and based on reality. And then I'm hoping that the quality will outweigh the quantity. And I think so far it has. I think I get a very good number of clients versus the number of followers I have. trying to think about what the numbers would be. I haven't calculated because sometimes they come in from, emails, sometimes they come in from phone. So I haven't calculated like the number of clients I've got from posting on LinkedIn. And sometimes you don't know anyways, but I think I have a pretty good, client to follower ratio, I would say, like new business to followers. So that's my operational system I'm using. Try to be real. Don't try to pretend to be Mr. Cool, Mr. Business, Mr. Whatever, so that I can get a lot of followers. Just try to be real and honest. Be okay with slow growth. Be okay with quantity over quality, and hopefully that'll work out.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm struggling now on Instagram, because LinkedIn I'm not really serious about, because I just found out after actually looking at your content, and I talked to this one PA in my last podcast, and she's also big on LinkedIn. But it's just like a couple of you people who are really good on LinkedIn. I found out, okay, LinkedIn could be a place for content. Like, I did not have any idea. But yes, you're right about the parasocial relationships, and it's the quality of the followers, right? Quality of the followers you have. But I'm really afraid of YouTube. I'm not saying my YouTube is growing really fast, but I did have only 300 subscribers in October. Now I have more than 500. And so it's all because of like pumping out more short form videos and talking in front of the camera, like under a minute. And it's the reach that you get from short form that's much more than long form videos. But in fact, I do enjoy these like conversations. And so, yeah, I have a similar experience, but on Instagram, I do encounter that. So that's my thing.
Do you feel, so you feel scared sometimes of the growth and understanding that putting stuff out there brings new people and you don't know these people? Does that scare you, and does that ever stop you from wanting to grow?
Definitely on YouTube. I get YouTube's community is very interesting. It's very, in my experience, and they're more accepting of content generally on every type of content, whether it's educational or entertainment. Instagram is like, I would say, much more of spicy content, like controversy, more of entertainment. Like, you have to spark their emotions more compared to just educate them. That's what I have experienced. Compared to YouTube, you can throw anything at YouTube, and if you're trying to solve a problem, you will have views. That's how I have seen it.
Gotcha.
But I have received comments that are negative and positive.
Yeah. Right.
And sometimes the comments are like just summarizing the whole video and saying, like, they're saying something in a tone where, like, why did I post the video when the logic is so easy to understand? Like, let's say I'm talking about like importance of a healthy diet. Well, that's a very basic video. But when I try to go, let's say I'm trying to go into the science of it in a YouTube video, I would get a comment saying, "Oh, a healthy diet is really essential. Why did you? There's no point of this video to be on the internet."
Yeah.
Like, it's just an example. I mean,
sure.
I don't know if I've made a video like that, but like some sort of comments like that, and then obviously like negative comments. Like, I try to keep. So I'm short, right? So there's a lot of problems with dating when you're short, fashion, insecurities. I have made content on that.
Can I ask you how tall you are?
Oh, 5'5".
5'5", yeah.
5'5".
I'm 5'9". Yeah. So I'm definitely, south of 6. So I'm probably average in Canada, but still I've always felt short, because most of my friends are like 6', 6'1". Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm 5'5", so hopefully that makes you feel better. I always tell.
You know what? You're 5'5", but you have way more experience on YouTube, and that's something that I want. So I mean, there's always different things, that we bring. But I understand, and it's tough for short guys out there.
Yes, like it just like you would get these random comments like, Like one comment was like, I don't know if it was like mean or like just rude, or it was just stating that, okay, you're doomed for life if you're short, like some sort of that.
Right.
And like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not the point of the video. The whole video was about how to deal with height insecurities. And I
Yeah.
think that's the most popular video on my channel right now,
Right.
which is drastically different than like you said, like your brother's story was like literally went viral on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
My how to deal with your height insecurities went viral on my YouTube. But I can't just like pop out content that's only like related to like being short. Like
No,
I
because you're
could
more
do that.
interesting than that. You're
Yeah,
more interesting than that.
mhm,
And that's the
yeah,
problem is like, the advice from a lot of creators is you've got to find a niche. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's good. But finding a niche is so much less interesting than finding, yeah, a specific problem. And then you can explore that problem, or a specific problem for a specific people. And I don't know, I find it so much more interesting to find people who do what they like and they find interesting. I get more from those people than I do from somebody who's just like, here's how to do this, and I help, plumbers make $1 million a year. That's great for plumbers who want to make $1 million a year. That's awesome. But
yeah.
you have more broad interests than that. And that's a great thing. And you are probably what they would call a polymath. I like to
Polymath.
think of I like to think of myself as that too. It means you are good at multiple things and you have multiple interests and you want to be a well-rounded person. And that means that you usually get slower growth. You usually make less money right away. You usually, like, for example, if you focus on one thing, you hyper focus on it, you will get to where you're going faster. The best
Yeah,
analogy I heard was at my wife's university when she was doing her master's. A guy came in and she was at a school where they were not specialists. They were doing global affairs, which is like not a specialist program, a master's of global affairs. And this guy came in, he's like, you guys, what you're doing in this course is you're building your own off-road vehicle. If you go to medical school or law school, you're basically building yourself a Ferrari. That means that you can drive super fast along a road, and the road is leading you to money. And if you specialize, you're building a specialized fast car, and it can drive super straight and super fast and get to money. But when you're building an off-road vehicle by getting all these different skills, you won't get to where you're going as fast, but you can go anywhere you want. And I loved that analogy so
that
much. I was like, fuck
so
yeah,
yeah,
because that's who I am. And that made me feel so much better because I never focus on any one thing. But now that I'm a public speaking coach, I'm a former actor, I do music, I speak multiple languages, I'm very well traveled. I'm interested in stories. I'm interested in communication. I'm interested in neuroscience. I'm interested in psychology. I'm interested in entrepreneurship. And I can use all these different things and put them into my coaching and my content. I can talk about them. I can make content. And that's so exciting and interesting to me.
yeah,
And as long as I'm not too spread out, you kind of have to corral yourself a little bit just to not make it just totally random. But what I can do is I can just take all those things and put them into how can I make you a better speaker? That's my job, is making people better speakers.
yeah.
And so if I just use all my different things but put them into that, then I know. And now you talked about negative comments. Let's just admit that they suck. Yeah, let's admit that none of us are above getting hurt by them.
Yeah.
Human beings have something called a negativity bias. It means we notice that which is negative way more than that which is positive. If you have a plate of food and there's a lion coming at you, you're not going to run and get the food. You're going to run away from the lion because that which is negative is more immediately dangerous to you than that which is potentially rewarding and positive. You got to deal with the negative first, and then you can go get the food. But that means if you have a wall of positive comments, great job, dude, keep it up. Oh, this was such an excellent video. Your editing is getting better. I love your new captions. Oh man, this was such a great thing. This is really helping me. I feel so seen by this video. Oh man, I'm going to use those tips. And then you get one guy going, what an idiot. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. What's the comment you focus on?
That one.
That one.
Yeah.
Every goddamn time. So we've just got to admit that to ourselves. We're never going to be above that. That's a deep human instinct. So the only thing you can do is not read them.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Or you can just get really good at reading them and saying, "Hey, man, sorry you felt that way. Have a beautiful day," or whatever, like whatever your thing is for that. Some people clap back. Their way of dealing with it is just going, "Hey, fuck you, you're an asshole," or whatever. That's not my style. So what I prefer to do is either answer them and go, "Sorry you feel that way. Have a great day," Or if they've said something that I think is interesting, I can engage with it and say, "Well, this is actually what I meant," or, "Hey, that's an interesting point that you made. I'll think about that." But in general, just going, I'm human. I have emotions. People being negative about me is going to hurt my feelings. So I've just got to try to avoid reading it as much as I can, because there's nothing really to be gained by listening to those negative comments, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can learn. If everybody in your audience is saying, "We don't care about this stuff, like stop posting," maybe, okay, you can learn something from that. But like, if most of your comments are positive, I would say stick with those. And also remember this thing about compatibility. We were talking earlier, you walk up to somebody and they just go, "Ugh, not you," and you walk away. That feels really hurtful. It feels like you are a piece of shit when somebody does that. But that doesn't actually say anything about you. And it doesn't even say anything about them particularly. It says something about the fit. You are somebody they like, or you are somebody they don't like. They are somebody you like, or they are somebody you don't like. When there's no fit, no amount of work, manipulation, tricks, explaining, nothing can supersede that. So what we want to do in life, whether it's with a partner or a friend or a business, a client or a business relationship or an investor, we're looking for fit. And if there's no fit, get out of there. You don't want to be there anyways. Just fucking leave and say, "Have a nice life," and move on, because that's what you want. So you just want to find your people. You want to find the people who get what you're doing. And it doesn't mean you just only want to be surrounded by yes men or people who love what you do. You never take criticism. It's just that some people, I put old comments on YouTube from my acting days, and some people would just like be like, "This guy's a piece of shit," like they're just like the meanest things, or like, "I can't stand this guy." I'm just like, okay, like I can't do anything about that. I can't
Yeah.
control that.
That's
Okay?
your problem.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's just I can't control for that. All I can do is just try to be me,
Yeah.
and that's gonna piss a lot of people off just because whatever I remind them of someone, they just don't like my vibe. That's fair. I can't. I probably wouldn't like me either. Doesn't matter. I like me, and some other people will like me, and I'll just keep doing my thing.
Yeah. Any last minute message or any last minute questions that you want to bring up? I know we were talking about YouTubing. Um, if you have anything else to like present or anything interesting before we end our conversation.
Yeah. So one thing I'm trying to remember to do is actually pitch the shit I have for sale when I go and do something like this, because
Mhm.
that's like good business practice. So I'm trying to remind myself. I have a book. It's called Transform Your Speaking Skills: How
Yes.
to Gain Confidence, Captivate Audiences, and Grow Your Career. It's on Amazon. I can give you the link, and you can post a
Oh,
link to it.
definitely.
Yeah. And that's a way to kind of get to know more about my story. That's also a way to learn the techniques that I take people through when I work with them as speaking coaches. And then the other thing is, yeah, follow me on LinkedIn at Will Greenblatt. I'll give you the link as well.
Yeah.
That's where I really post most of my um, uh, daily content. And then the third piece is my newsletter. So I have a newsletter called The Green Blast, and I send a weekly deep dive into one of these things I'm posting about, of like, how can you go deep into these public speaking and communication techniques and principles to understand them better, and things you can apply to your conversations, things you can apply to your on stage, things that you can apply to your content creation. So that's what I'm up to right now. If anybody watching this is interested, you can find me there. And then the last thing I just want to say is, the most important conversation you have is with yourself. So get really good at talking to yourself, not just telling yourself you're perfect and you're the best, but also not just telling yourself that you suck and you're worthless. You've got to find the way of challenging those negative thoughts you have of yourself, and then challenging the ones that are overly positive, where you think you can't learn anything, or you're better than something, or better than someone else. Just try to speak to yourself in a healthy, loving way, the way that you would to a friend or a family member that you really love. And that's the most important conversation. You have that conversation with yourself, with a therapist, writing in your journal or doing these exercises online. Do that first, and then all your other conversations will get so much better.
Well, it was awesome to talk with you again. The amount of value that I take from you is incredible.
Oh,
And
man, thank you.
for all those who's watching, I have had a lot of insights and education just from Will's LinkedIn. So I hope everyone here who is watching, make sure you give Will's LinkedIn a chance. Just look at it. You will be amazed. The amount of effort that goes into educating his audience is immense, and he deserves followers on LinkedIn, because like I have applied everything, and it's working slowly. It's just like a habit, and it's just like the speaking is just like muscle. And just it makes me realize that how much I have to improve in terms of my speaking from your LinkedIn. And that's sometimes I just open LinkedIn just to see like, okay, what is Will is going to post today? Because if Will is posting every single day on LinkedIn and I'm missing it, like there's something wrong with me, because I have my goal to like improve my YouTube channel. And I, even if I take your strategies from LinkedIn, apply to YouTube, and that's what I've done over the course of these couple months that we haven't been in touch. So
and you're doing that for other people too, which is so great. That's what I love about this kind of creator economy thing, whatever, is that as cheesy as it can be, or as like attention oriented, there are a lot of people out there who are just trying to give away what they know so that people like that they help people who need it. And then that has such a beautiful knock-on effect. If you inspire somebody else and then they decide to start their thing and they inspire someone, like all that stuff can be so important and so powerful as the exponential effect of like all of what we share grows. And so I just think you got to keep going. I got to keep going. And it's a beautiful thing.
We got to make 2024 the best. Let's get it. All right. Thank you, Will. I'll definitely have you on later this year or next year, whenever.
Anytime, buddy. Yeah. Anytime.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching this entire episode. If you had done so, Will Greenblatt is the CEO and co-founder of Out Loud Speaker School, where he coaches people on presentation skills, public communication, and just improving their tone and pitch and voice. So if you are interested in improving your communication skills, improving your delivery, presentation skills, your content creation skills, I urge you to check out Will's content on LinkedIn. Will has a New Year's resolution, you could say, to post on LinkedIn every single day in 2024. So don't miss any of his insightful and educational posts. His book, his LinkedIn, his Instagram will all be linked down in the description. Again, thank you for supporting the podcast. Take care.